there were some things happening in the preliminary stages of negotiating HAFA that would have essentially made it so that realtors' commissions would have been dramatically reduced, and the National Association of Realtors protected our interests. So when you pay your annual dues to NAR, put a little smiley face. Put a little smiley face in the memo section, okay? Because if it wasn't for them, there's a lot of reasons to believe that our real estate industry really would have problems.
All right, point number 4 is called national acceptance, going from crisis to acceptance. There is no more political will to, quote, save housing and help homeowners. The national attention will be off of housing. There's a lot of other issues they're focusing on. We've moved beyond shock, and now we're into the acceptance phase. You know, when things started to turn, the first thing that people said was, what do you mean my house isn't appreciating? Then the next stage was, what do you mean it's worth what I paid? And then they've moved on to, how can I be losing money? Well, the cat's out of the bag. The whole world knows this. So, in other words, nationally, everyone will simply accept that housing prices must self-correct. Additionally, because the foreclosures will be more heavily concentrated on the upper end, second homes, vacation homes, and commercial real estate, the, quote, rich are expecting less intervention. So what do you do about that, Tim?
Well, guys, there it is. I mean, remember, the point is we're in a time machine. We're in 6 months into the future. We're reading the headlines, and Julie is pointing out what we believe is going to start happening right around November, around election time. We have the United States, the people, the national think, if you want to call it that, has gone from, well, let's save, it's a housing crisis, to we have to save the housing victims, and then it went from, let's try to bail out housing, and now it's like, well, that didn't work, and then
that didn't work, and that program didn't work.
That's right. And, well, that one sort of works, but not really. And so now what's going to happen is people have safe housing fatigue. The politicians aren't going to want to propose any more safe housing. And even the National Association of Realtors said it's time to have housing stand on its own. So, guys, the fact is that nationally, people are going to accept the fact that we're in this long, constipated Python phase of the real estate correction, right, with quotes around it. People are just going to report on housing with regards to the devaluation, with regards to the underwater homeowners, and it's not going to have any drama associated with it. It'll have become the new normal. So what to do now? Stop talking about the housing market in terms such as doom and gloom and recovery. There is no longer the new normal. This is normal. Get into acceptance mode fast. So we've just read you the headline. Now we've told you what to do. Point number 5, end of Fannie and Freddie free-for-all. Fannie and Freddie is being gutted right now, guys. Fannie and Freddie, for a lot of reasons, are going to completely and totally revamp the way they give mortgages. We've all seen in the past 90 days through the summer, they've been tightening up their lending standards significantly, their credit scoring, the things that they're required prior to closing. They're asking for, another credit checks like the day of closing to make sure that people didn't rush out and buy a car and the rest of it. Some would argue, including Julie and I, these are things they should have been doing all the way along, but the fact is that buyers are not conditioned for that level of scrutiny when it comes to obtaining a mortgage. Guys,
especially from FHA. FHA was the place where you took your borrowers that couldn't go conventional. It was kind of a de facto subprime type of a deal.
Here's an interesting thought for you, okay? Right now, it's actually easier to keep a mortgage that you're defaulting on, right, a loan mod or whatever else, some sort of workout, than it is to get a new mortgage. So if you've been bad on your mortgage and you can't afford your mortgage and you're upside down in your house, given all the government intervention, it's actually easier to keep a house than it is to get a house. Kind of an interesting thought, isn't it?
Kind of crazy.
So this is what you need to be doing now to prepare for what's going to be happening. Find your best, most qualified FHA mortgage-approved loan officer and become their best friend. Know the best rates, terms, FHA programs. I'm going to tell you something else, guys. There are a lot of little, essentially, federal government housing dollars, not in the billions, but in the millions, that are being sent around to the different states. These are going to manifest themselves in the forms of grants. And you need to absolutely positively get to know your FHA lender, take them out to lunch, become friends with them, make sure that they're the biggest FHA lender in town, and find the top producing FHA lender, because this FHA lender will keep you on top of various loan programs. Literally, guys, right now in your community, whether you know it or not, there's probably down payment assistance programs out there that are limited time, limited pool, only available to, say, firefighters. Those types of programs are all over the country, and remember, being business people, be aware of those programs. So what to do now? Get into acceptance mode, go out and find your best qualified, top-producing FHA loan officer, and become best friends with them. Point number 6, my dear.
And this is crazy. Post-foreclosure, after the foreclosure, mortgage reinstatements. That's right. You heard it here. Post-foreclosure mortgage reinstatement. So, Tim, we've been talking about this in the short sale class and the REO class. Are you telling me somebody post-foreclosure, they've honest to God been foreclosed on, they're still living in the house, they can get that reinstated? Is that true?
Yeah, well, so I had an interesting graduate coaching call the other day. Now, these are Fannie Mae that's behind this, guys, and Fannie Mae loans serviced by Bank of America. What we've seen is Fannie Mae has been testing different programs. So here's the types of programs that we don't need to talk about these individual programs. These are a reality. If you guys want any more
information, to put on your radar.
Yes, and this is going to be real prolific, and people are going to be talking about it in 6 months. Remember the little observation that we just made, that it's going to be easier to keep your house than it is to get a house in the future. And here's some examples why. There's going to be again, if you default on your mortgage right now in certain parts of the country, the foreclosure has happened, the second is wiped out, the HOA is wiped out. It is a foreclosure. You are literally packing your boxes. In certain parts of the country right now, what's happening is that you're getting a knock on the door. It's your friendly realtor, and your realtor is offering on behalf of your mortgage company to reinstate your mortgage at the new prevailing rate. And yes, we know you just lost the house in foreclosure and all the other liens and secondaries were wiped out. That doesn't matter. They're reinstating the mortgage for you. This is happening now very subtly, very quietly around the country. Another thing we expect to see a lot is organized deed for lease programs. You guys know about those, DIL, deed for lease. But now what we expect to see happening is deed for lease to own, okay? So let's say, for example, you guys know that right now when you do you can do a deed for lease. Actually, I think it's through the FHA, where basically you do a friendly foreclosure, you give them back the deed, sign it over, and then they'll let you lease the house back. Now, what's going to happen is that it's going to move from that to a point where you're leasing to own. So now the homeowners are going to be able to stay in the house, and actually through the series of lease payments, they're going to set aside a certain amount of money, and then they're going to own the house again. You're going to see alternative uses of housing stock plans. They're going to talk about what are we going to do with all these unsold communities, these huge subdivisions. Those of you who live in areas where there's, residential towers like Jules and I in Vegas. Okay, what are we going to do with all these unsold homes? You're going to hear lots of talk about group homes, artist communities. Seriously, guys, radical proposals. Historic example here, just to put this in perspective, just so you guys can know what's coming, so you're not surprised. Back in Caesar's time, yes, we're talking about Julius Caesar, the emperor of Rome, there was a housing bust. And what did he do? He had a radical plan, too, because people were getting really antsy. They were starting to be revolts because people couldn't afford their house payments. He ordered that all mortgage interest to be forgiven, right? Interesting idea. Now, we're not expecting that to happen, but there are going to be radical programs, and you can't be surprised, and I want you to be prepared. So what do you do now? Stay on top of all the latest housing news, so you're the purveyor of facts, not fiction. So you're the one, when you're standing in line at Starbucks this weekend, you can have a logical conversation and position yourself as an expert, as someone who's way ahead of the curve, someone who's actually disseminating news, not looking for rumors. Point number 7, Jules.
All right. Point number 7, HAFA, Home Affordable Foreclosure Alternatives. HAFA works, well, sort of. Short sales using HAFA version whatever we're on 6 months from now, version X we'll call it, will work, but they might come too late. Short sales only work when a homeowner is willing to participate. Okay, so now what's happening is banks are trying to create their own little hybrid HAFA programs, and that creates more paperwork, more hassle with the seller. All of our short sale students are used to the paperwork drill. Guess what? A lot of your prospects, your clients, your short sale sellers are not used to that kind of paperwork. So what do you do now? Well, you got to be up to speed on the HAFA guidelines. Report to us when the lenders are not following the guidelines they should be, so we can report it to NAR, etc. But you've got to know what banks are using, what rules, what are the HAFA requirements, and become an absolute HAFA expert. We teach you this in the short sale class. Every one of my short sale students should have that printed out in your short sale notebook and be referring to that.
When you have a short sale, guys, if you and your borrower want it to be, or your homeowner want it to be a HAFA short sale, you have to write a letter that makes it painfully clear that you're requesting this be a HAFA short sale. Do not leave any reason to believe, or do not assume that the bank is going to automatically want to process it as a HAFA. I'm having a conversation with Jeff at NAR next week, and I'm going to explain to him that what the lenders are doing is their best to act like they're following HAFA in many cases, but trying not to follow HAFA.
They use their own special guidelines.
So exactly. They're trying to use their own version of HAFA, and that's not the way it's supposed to go, guys. Bankers, we're watching you. Don't think we're not. Okay, you can run as many realtor-friendly ads and webinars and teleconferences as you want, but until you actually start following the rules that you said you were going to, we are going to continue to report you. So I want you to report to me when you hear violations of HAFA, Tim at Harris Real Estate University. I send those to National Association of Realtors.
Now, we don't ignore that. that, guys. You guys are on the front line. Send it to us, and we do send that on.
And then they take it to where? The Treasury Department, okay? So this is basically your direct line to about as close to the top as we can possibly get.
Yeah, be proactive.
Again, National Association of Realtors, guys, pay your dues and put a smiley face in the memo section.
That's right. Okay, point number 8, or headline number 8, we all work for the government now. More bank control is going to be out there. No one in the real estate industry really wants to hear this, but in 6 months it will be painfully obvious. REO students, you guys already know this. Think of it this way. Banks control millions of homes for sale right now. These are the REOs and pre-REOs. Banks control who lists the foreclosures and REOs. For example, Bank of America is now sending short sale listing leads to agents. In other words, banks are controlling the listings, and agents will be forced to compete almost on an executive level. You are essentially being employed by the bank. Remember the headline, we all work for the government now. Government controls the banks control the realtors. So what to do now? Embrace the accountability that's required by the banks. I know this is a new thought for lots of you. Learn the rules and win. Embrace the bureaucracy. It gives you a competitive edge.
Julie, what the heck do you mean by that?
Well, it's interesting, Tim. The thing that pops to my mind is all the new people getting into real estate from engineering backgrounds and pilots, people who love, to figure out the rules and win, people who follow directions and look at things as a business. That's not a natural tendency for agents. A lot of realtors got into this so that they wouldn't have to have a boss. So having a boss at the bank, whether it's an asset manager or a short sale negotiator, whatever that may be, it seems like a big struggle to figure out what are these rules. But the brilliance of this is if you stop fighting it and learn the rules, you can win. You can be like somebody like Michelle McClintock, who knows her ins and outs of every bank, all of the rules, and is an absolute short sale butt kicker, So she wins. She understands that, and instead of fighting the system, she's decided that she's going to learn it and turn it to her advantage so she can help more people.
Well, guys, it's an excellent point. You guys to be taking that seriously. Our industry in the past has celebrated the top producer, right? Has celebrated the superstar realtor, and obviously this is part of our superstar interview series, so we are as well. But the rules that it's going to take, what it's going to take to be a superstar in the future isn't just, and all these things are important, isn't just your ability to lead generate, isn't just your ability to, master scripts and dialogues. It's going to be your ability, guys, to work within the rules set by the lenders. I don't like the fact that this is the way our business has become, and it's probably going to be for a long period of time, where the lenders control the inventory. Guys, when there's this many, 19 million vacant homes according to HUD, according to Elizabeth Warren from the Congressional Oversight Committee over TARP, she said there's up to 18 million potential homes in the shadow inventory, right? Putting in perspective, in a good market, about 5 million homes sell per year in the country. So there is no question right now for the foreseeable future that the banks will have control over pricing, over who gets the listing, over listing terms, over commissions. And again, guys, I keep on saying this, and so true, support the National Association of Realtors because they are our 800-pound gorilla in the room when the banks are talking with Treasury about selling all this shadow inventory. So here's the bottom line, guys. What to do now, as Julie just said, embrace the accountability, put on a business hat and a salesperson hat at the same time. That gives you an advantage because other realtors will struggle to evolve to the fact that they have to now be business owners, not just be great salespeople. Point number 9. This is going to be very interesting. It's already happening in certain parts of the country like Detroit, Michigan.
Okay, this is a little shocking. Some of you guys might need to sit down. This is a big point.
Creative inventory reduction. Point number 9. This is what we're reading about in the headline. This one, remember, guys, we're in this time machine. We have a half hour to do a little exploration about what the future is going to be in our industry, and we're seeing that creative inventory reduction, better known as the backhoe, tearing down or removing the existing housing stock homes. They've done this throughout history during similar housing crashes, guys. There's been 4 major housing crashes going back to all the way to the time of Caesar, and during the time of Caesar on forward. You could talk about American history only. One of the solutions that the government always comes up with, frankly, is to tear down houses. So not all these are going to be old dilapidated houses, guys. Some of these are going to be new subdivisions that are vacant. Some of these, and this is going to be a shock to a lot of you, especially where Julie and I live, in Vegas, they're going to be tearing down towers. They're going to be tearing down whole subdivisions, buildings. It's going to go back to the desert in our community and back to the earth where you live, back to the farmlands if you're from Ohio, where Julie and I are from. The fact is, guys, this is going to happen. This is going to happen because these buildings, these homes, these communities are going to go to pot. In a building, in a home, if the pipes are not used, if the electricity is not run, if the clock is not replaced, if the shingles are not fixed, the house starts to leak, it starts to creak, and it becomes
It becomes more trouble than it's worth, basically.
Yeah, and that's especially true. That's especially true with these big these towers and condos and things like that.
Well, and even you remember in Columbus when the fire department used to use functionally obsolescent houses that were just too dilapidated to sell, were basically worthless. Remember the fire department used to use them as practice to burn down?
Yeah, exactly. So, guys, that's going to be happening. I'm not sure. Not to Julie's point, but overall, they're going to be tearing the houses down.